Alrighty, we are going live here. Let's wait for the streams to be streaming. I think it's just Instagram left. And now we got Instagram going too. Cool. Surprisingly, no issues this time. We've had a little bit of bad luck the past couple streams with everything being broken right at the beginning. I guess still TBD if the chat is working. So, folks, if you're joining into the chat, come say hi. Let me know it's working. I do appreciate it. It's a fear of mine to do the stream and then to realize that the chat's not working. So, makes it pretty awkward when people are asking questions and you're like, oh, no one's here talking. And then I look at the actual stream itself and the chat's there and I'm like, I see them now. I use Restream so that I can go across, this is streaming to YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, Kick, Instagram, Twitter. Then I have to do TikTok separately. I got Substack. Hi, folks on Substack. Unfortunately, Substack is still not like a, I don't know, call it like a first-class streaming platform, which is kind of unfortunate. But someday they'll get there, I'm sure. It's pretty new there. So I do appreciate folks on Substack joining in. Unfortunately, if you're on Substack, you don't see my my screen being shared, so I apologize. But if you're joining on Substack and you want to see when I do screen sharing, then hop on YouTube or something else. Hey, Justin Bentley, good to see you. I appreciate you being here. And Cyber Warrior 894 has a question to kick things off. I'm a first-year CS student. Should I be scared of AI replacing all tech jobs? At some point in the very far future, yes. I don't think for now. I've made a whole bunch of videos on this topic about AI replacing jobs. Because you're on YouTube from my main channel, Dev Leader, if you want to check out my other channel called Code Commute, you can find a bunch of recent videos. I'm just going to put it in the chat. Code Commute is my other YouTube channel. And like I said, you'll see other videos. Or actually my main channel, Dev Leader, if you look through my recent videos, I might as well just pull it up. It's a live stream. We can do this. Share. One sec. This is a video from my main channel, Dev Leader. Sorry, that didn't copy properly. If you want to check this one out, this is a edited down version of some of the topics from Code Commute. And again, if you're on a different platform where you can't see the chat coming in, the question was, I'm a first-year CS student. Should I be scared of AI replacing all tech jobs? This is a very common fear. Unfortunately, you have a lot of things in the media perpetuating this, which is very crappy. I don't think that that's going to be a reality. Landon on TikTok is asking, do you watch hockey? I do not, which is kind of wild as a Canadian. I don't watch hockey, and I'm going to share a secret. I can't even skate. So don't tell the other Canadians, though. I do drink maple syrup by the barrel every morning. I got no other Canadian jokes. I eat poutine every day. I don't know. But no, I don't watch hockey. But yeah, folks, do you know what the OHL is? The Ontario Hockey League? I think. Yep, nice. Yeah, OHL. Sorry, again, oh, Saginaw Spirit, very cool. Yeah, the TikTok chat doesn't get shared to the rest of the chat, so there's chats everywhere. So this is Landon from TikTok saying he plays for Saginaw Spirit. Cool stuff. That's awesome, man. Congrats. I can't skate, so I'm just out here doing software developer things. So for folks that are new to these live streams, I do them every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific. The primary goal for me is to make sure that if you have questions and stuff that you want to ask related to software development, career progression, that kind of stuff, please ask in the chat. That's the whole point of this. I make tons of YouTube videos. I can keep making tons of YouTube videos, but live streams are an opportunity where I can actually chat with you and go back and forth and answer questions and stuff. The other really cool thing is that when the stream starts ramping up, there's lots of smart people that join the stream too. And you can engage in conversations that way because you'll have other people jumping in and offering their opinion. Lots of people that join almost every week, which is really cool to see people coming back. It's not just an accident they stopped in, unless it continues to be an accident, I guess, and then they just keep dropping in. But yeah, I appreciate y'all being here. The topic for today, because I try to have a topic for every one of these streams, is my manager refuses to give feedback. Landon says, a Vancouver Canucks called me last month and they said they are going to pick me in the 2025 NHL draft. That's super cool, dude. That is exciting. So if you are interested in knowing what my live streams are going to be about, there's a cat at my door meowing very loud. It's unrelated, but it's my weekly newsletter is generally what I will make it on. If I just quickly share my screen, you'll see that I have it pulled up here. Sorry, if you're on, I see David just joined on Substack. Welcome. If you're on Substack, you already know where my newsletter is. If you're on other platforms, it might not be as obvious, especially if you're on Instagram, because it's a vertical feed. But my weekly newsletter, which I linked in the chat, if you get chat, is where my weekly topic for the live stream is going to be. But like I said, as I'm going through this topic and talking about, in this particular case, about feedback from your manager, if you want to derail and ask questions in the chat, please do. I will try my best to finish whatever thought I have from the topic of conversation and pivot over to your questions. So I do appreciate too if you're patient and I'm in the middle of something. I think last week I had someone that got very upset with me because I didn't answer their question immediately, but we still spent time answering it. So anyway, let's get back so you can see my lovely face here. Okay, so this is a topic that came from Code Commute last week, and I wrote about it in my newsletter because I think it's really important to talk through feedback. It is one of the most critical things you can have for growth in your career, and that's because, well, a few different reasons, but it's also something that we don't often... What's a good way to say this? I think it actually takes many people like effort to actually go ask for feedback. And on top of that, it takes effort for some people to be able to digest and leverage feedback. It can be something that's awkward. It can be uncomfortable. It's something that we can do poorly. So, saying to someone, great job, is like, that's nice, but like sometimes it's just not very useful. So useful feedback's another thing, but feedback is like just something that I think all of us can do better, and we can and should take advantage of more, especially when it comes to career growth. Now, the topic for this conversation is specifically around feedback from your manager. And this entire conversation, like the topic itself, stemmed from the fact that it originated from Reddit, as all interesting things do, right? Someone on Reddit was saying they basically made this statement like their manager refuses to give them feedback. And when I was talking about this on Code Commute originally, I thought it was an interesting way to frame that, because they started by saying their manager refuses to give them feedback, which I think is like, I think that's a pretty, I don't know, pretty strong phrase to use, like to refuse to give feedback. And it made me think like a couple of things. And so I wrote about it in the newsletter, but like the first one is like, are you actually asking for feedback? Are they providing feedback and it's not valuable and you're seeing that as a refusal to do it? So we'll get into that in a little bit more depth. Hello on Kick. Good to see you. LinkedIn user. Why isn't the LinkedIn usernames coming through? I can see you on LinkedIn. Murad, good to see you. Your first message didn't come through. I just see parts of it. Interesting. Good thing I can switch over to LinkedIn. So Murad on LinkedIn says, as a junior developer, which one is more priority? Building projects, and which type? DSA or system design? These are all important for different reasons. So let me take a moment to try and articulate this. So again, the question from Murad is, as a junior developer, which one is more of a priority? Building projects, and then I guess the sort of sub question there is which types of projects, data structures and algorithms, and system design or system design. So I would say they all serve different purposes. I would say the number one that I would recommend you spend the most time and effort on is building projects. And that's because you're actually practicing building software. I did a survey on, I think I knew what the answer was going to be, but I started a survey on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Reddit, on basically every platform that supports polls, and asked people the most effective way that they learn, and by a landslide, building stuff hands-on. So as a junior, when you're trying to get better, right, this is something that you're new at, which is totally fine and expected, but you have to get started somewhere. You have to start building things. You have to practice. I would spend most of your time on this. I don't mean like most of your waking hours. I mean most of your efforts in terms of trying to get better and improve on building projects. Murad's follow-up question to that part specifically was which type. I think the way that I would frame this up is you have to think about the goal of building projects. So projects can be beneficial for resumes. I think sometimes people, I mean, there's a couple things, right? If you're trying to put a project onto a resume, if that is the goal, you want it to be something that's going to stand out. Okay. And the reason that you do that is because if your experience, especially as a junior, is very limited, and the skill sets that you have are going to be very comparable to the other junior people that also don't have, hands-on experience, the thing that's going to make you stand out amongst them, aside from like volunteer efforts and things like that, like the types of things that you've spent time building could make you stand out. And this is why when people say like, oh, building another calculator app is useless, or a to-do app is useless, it's not that those things are useless. It's that they don't stand out on a resume. They don't seem unique because lots of other people have them. Now, does that mean that you should not build a calculator app or you should not build a to-do app? No, I think that if you want to, and you can and should, you can leverage projects to showcase what you're learning. So if you wanted to build a to-do app and you wanted to say this, let me learn React, it let me interface with Postgres, it let me go figure out how to do deployments, and you want to list out the technologies and stuff that you were building and iterating on, great, because that might be experience that someone else doesn't have, and that could stand out. So welcome, Harry. You missed the last 2 weeks. Shame on you. But thanks for being here. So I think that when we talk about projects, you have to think about what the goal is, okay? So if you take that into consideration, just think about why you're building something. And I think for the most part, a lot of the value just comes from the learning experience of building things. The next part was on DSA or system design. So data structures and algorithms or system design. If you're very junior, system design will arguably be less important. It's not because there's no value in it. You're going to be building systems in your career, but the sort of exposure to this kind of thing, or the expectation that you have a lot of system design skills as a junior, probably lower expectation. I'm not hiring juniors onto my teams to go architect systems. This is generally something that we have people with more experience doing. Now, being able to do it and have an understanding of it is very valuable. But if I were to recommend how people should spend their time building projects, for sure, and then especially when it comes to interviewing, data structures and algorithms, especially. And that's because a lot of programming interview questions are built around data structures and algorithms. Not all of them, a lot of them. And in particular, like LEET code style questions. Unfortunately, I've been hearing more and more people saying that this is kind of changing in the industry, which is good news. I hope it continues that way, because I don't think that LEET code style questions are very valuable in terms of predicting someone's performance as a software developer. Okay, so that's my take, Murad. I hope that's helpful. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions or if I didn't get that as clearly as you would like, but that's my perspective on it. 0xDOWZ Dows says, hi, do you know anything about penetration testing? Not a significant amount. As in, like, not professionally. I understand concepts from it at a high level, understand the purpose, but not enough to sort of speak to, I don't know, like, from, I don't have industry experience, like, as a penetration tester, that kind of thing. So if you have questions that are high level, I might be able to answer for you, but otherwise, if it's very specific and nuanced, maybe not. But yeah, I think that's it for questions. I'm going to go back to the newsletter topic. By the way, thank you for asking the questions. If there's more, just keep dumping them in the chat. It's the whole point. Okay, so the way that I started approaching this in the newsletter regarding feedback from your manager, as I said, that you want to make sure that it's kind of like a prerequisite. You want to make sure that you are set up to have clear and effective communication with your manager. This is something that I talk about, like, probably enough that makes people sick of hearing it from me, but I think it's critical. If you don't know sort of my background, I am an engineering manager. I've been doing this for almost 13 years now. Currently at Microsoft for just under 5 years, and before that was at a startup that grew from around 7 people to around 250 by the time I left. So I have seen some shit, but I've been an engineering manager for a while, and I think that one of the most important things in terms of career development is making sure that you have clear, open, and effective communication with your manager, because your manager is ultimately going to be the person that helps put you up for promotion. Okay, and if you're interested in career advancement, and aside from just, you might be very proactive and you're good at finding opportunities and projects and stuff to work on. This is all great. But in terms of the actual advancement and levels and things like that, making sure that you're aligned with your manager is going to be one of the best things that you can do in that regard. If you're not, you're going to be likely set up for disappointment, because you might think that you're doing the things that you should focus on. And then when it comes time for performance and rewards and things like that, it's like, why aren't I getting promoted? And your manager might say, because you're not doing X, Y, and Z. And you'll say, but I was doing A, B, and C. And you're like, you're totally on different pages, right? So clear and effective communication with your manager is critical. Going back to the chat, do you think companies have enough awareness about it? I mean, will I find jobs as a pen tester? Absolutely. Security is just going to be more and more and more important, especially with the scale of things. Especially with just like the continued drive for everything being digital. Security is like one of the most important things, right? You have companies that, if we take a step back, like, a business needs to be able to generate revenue, right? So you need to be able to basically provide value to customers so that they pay for things. If you don't have that, you don't have a business, right? So you have that, but once you have that in place, if there isn't trust between you and the customers, which is a lot of the time built on privacy and security, if you don't have that, the business erodes, right? You're not going to, if you didn't have if you're trying to use a bank, right, and there wasn't security, you're probably not putting money in that bank. If you're going to be paying money to a service provider and they're going to be storing your data for whatever it is, and that's private data, you don't want to have your information leaked, right? Like, there's all these things are like predicated on the fact that you have privacy and security at a level that gives people trust in your service. And so if we take like I work at Microsoft right now, right? And I know different people have different opinions on Microsoft. People will say like, oh, I hate Bill Gates. And I'm like, Bill Gates doesn't even work there, man. But like, there's obviously a stigma around Microsoft from some people. You'll have people that have bad experiences with the software. They don't like it. They think it's too much, whatever. It's clunky, buggy. There's going to be opinions about this kind of stuff from everyone. But from working at Microsoft, I can say that security is like the most important thing in terms of a charter that we have. At least in the space that I'm in, we will drop absolutely everything when it comes to security. It's the pinnacle of importance, because without it, we don't have a platform. It needs to be secure. So and by the way, I don't know how to pronounce your username. 0xDAOs. I think it's a 0x out the front, like a, then Dow's after that. But yeah, I think to your question, I think that there is, do enough companies have awareness? I don't know. Maybe they don't, but I think that it will continue to gain traction. I don't think that that's going to be something that decreases, and that's, I guess, my perspective. I don't have data to back that up with trends, so just a heads up there. There's someone else from LinkedIn. Oh man, Murad's message finally came in, and it says hi, but that hi message is from ages ago. So bizarre. Thanks for nothing, Restream. Okay. I think I'm going to go back to the newsletter topic. So where we left off was effective communication and why that's important. But what I wrote down was like, when you're set up to have effective communication, you can work towards that alignment of expectations. You can reduce surprises, right? Surprises when it comes to performance time, not a thing you want. It's pretty rare that you're going to be sitting there at performance and rewards time when it's, time for promotion and have a super exciting positive surprise, right? Usually it's disappointment because you were expecting the promotion and it didn't happen, unfortunately. So if you are working on having alignment with your manager, clear communication, this is going to set you up to avoid that. You can reduce the uncertainty in your priorities. Again, having clear understanding of what you should be working on. And then also a better understanding of strengths and weaknesses for yourself. Okay, and this is going to be where the feedback part comes in, right? Feedback is this opportunity that we can get different perspective. Again, coming from your manager is going to be very valuable because when you're aligning on expectations, they will be trying to call out the areas that you should be focused on, ideally, right? And then that way, you can make sure you're getting that feedback, acting on it, and then working towards the progression. Luke Skinner says, and I say that in jest as the second message, so I'm mentally preparing to read this first comment or question. As a software engineer in academic research with full Microsoft Azure stack and wallowing in the misery of MS security, I can clear with that conclusion. Also been in orgs in the past with suffered breaches, and that wasn't fun. Shut the intercompany down for many days twice. Yeah. Secure, like, this is why I kind of prefaced everything I was saying with, like, everyone's going to have their own take on Microsoft. If I wasn't working at Microsoft and I was working at Google, you have people say, oh, Google sucks for these reasons. If I was at Amazon sucks for these. There's always going to be, the surface area of these companies is outrageously big. Okay, so I can't sit here and say, like, any of these companies have never had a problem or something like that. What I can say is that, and you don't have to believe me on this, right? I'm just sharing with you my experience. Like, security is the top most important part of our charter, and I could be working on literally anything. And if my manager or my skip level came to me and said anything about security, I know exactly what that means. It means you're not doing anything else except addressing this now or yesterday, right? It's like, it's the top most priority. So just how it is. So when you don't have an open, clear communication channel with your manager to be able to get feedback, you'll often find yourself uncertain about what's expected of you to get to the next level. We talked about, like, this idea that you might not be aligned, and then when you go to have performance reviews, like, uh-oh, big surprise. And then I kind of wrote down, like, having blind spots in your skill sets and what you should focus on. Right. So this can be a thing where, especially if your head's down working a certain way for a while, we talk about soft skills being important for software engineers, right? If you're not getting feedback on this kind of stuff, you may find yourself in a situation where, like, maybe your soft skills do need a lot of work. And if you're not getting feedback on that, you might not be aware that this is something you need to address, right? You might be operating a particular way, not getting feedback, staying that certain way for a while, and then maybe after a year, 2 years or something, someone finally gives you feedback and they're like, man, like, you really got to work on this. Like, your communication's not clear, or people find it difficult to work with you. And you don't want to wait for things to get to that point. You want to understand that these are areas for you to improve upon along the way. Okay. So you have a clear, open communication channel with your manager. That was the prerequisite. Now comes the feedback part, right? So I think that you need that to at least enable feedback, but it doesn't guarantee that you get it. Okay, so I wrote, so what should you be doing if there isn't actually a solid feedback loop? Is it possible that your manager is just outright refusing to give you feedback? So, like I said earlier in the stream, this came from a Reddit post, and I was doing a video response to it. And the first, I don't know, I try to take like different perspectives on this stuff when I'm talking through it, okay? And oftentimes when I'm doing my vlog entry, I'm sharing like sort of stream of consciousness, the first thing that comes to mind. And then I try to look at it from different angles as well. And then that way I can try to, like, I can learn from it too, if that makes sense, because I think it's important that I try to look at things from different angles. And one thing that came to mind was like, is it possible that this person's saying, like, my manager's refusing to give me feedback, but really what's happening is that not that the manager's refusing, it's just like the manager's not giving them feedback and this person's not asking for it. Okay, so that was the first thing that came to mind. My LinkedIn messages are not coming through properly. This one says, hi, Nick from LinkedIn user, and I don't know who it is. Who are you, LinkedIn user? I will find you. Faraz, welcome. I had to refresh on LinkedIn. So, step one, are you even asking for feedback, right? A theme when I talk about career progression and I talk about, you know, the ways to operate in your career is that you shouldn't sit back and be passive about things. It's the same thing when it comes to going after promotions and stuff like that. Going after opportunities, waiting for opportunities to fall in your lap, not a good strategy. And I would say the same thing for feedback. If you're just sitting there waiting for feedback, there's a different approach you can take, which is if you're expecting it and you want it and it's going to help you grow, ask for it. Right? This is something that I try to make sure that I'm doing with my employees. I try to make sure that they're getting feedback, but I can't sit here and say that I'm perfect at it. I'm certainly not. I've been doing this for almost 13 years, and I can tell you with confidence that I am not perfect at this. Now, when I have an employee that comes to me and says, hey, could you give me some feedback on this? I appreciate it, right? And it's for a couple of reasons. One is that it's an opportunity where I can help clarify something with them. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. And number two, it reminds me that at least for this individual in this context, they actually are looking for more feedback, right? The cadence that I'm providing it at or the type of feedback that I have been providing is not sufficient. And I don't beat myself up over that. I'm not like, oh, I must be the worst manager. It's just a reminder that this person is seeking more. And what's my role as a manager? It's to enable my employees to do their best work possible and grow in their career. So this is an opportunity for me to be doing a better job with them. So I would always say, like, I definitely want people to come ask me if they're looking for more feedback. Okay, so how does this work? How does this look? My recommendation, and this is based on my own experience, would be, I'll kind of explain how I've seen this work and how I try to maneuver it. So if we use the example of someone on my team, if you're reporting to me and you came to me and said, like, we're doing a one-on-one, right? We're chatting through stuff. And then you say, and any, you know, like, hey, Nick, could I get some feedback from you on how I'm doing? Usually what will happen is I will say, hey, look, I can give you some general feedback sort of in the context of this conversation, like something that you could walk away with right now. But usually what I will say is that, unfortunately, it is probably going to feel kind of generic and not very actionable. And then I stop there and then we go our different ways. No, it's going to feel kind of generic and not actionable because for me, I need some time to process this. I don't, like, generally I don't walk around throughout my entire day having everything loaded up in my head about, you know, any feedback I could go drop on an employee at a given time. I'm doing a lot of other stuff too. but my employees are my priority. So if someone said I would like some feedback, I would try to give them something high level and then tell them, hey, we should schedule more time for tomorrow or, sometime very soon. We'll schedule a more dedicated session and let me bring to you some more actionable feedback. Let's talk about alignment, right? Let's do that instead of me just saying, you're doing a good job. And then you're like, that really sucks for feedback. What am I going to do with that? Right? Like, it's not a bad thing to hear that you're doing well, but it's also like, it's not really actionable. You're like, okay, so does that mean I'm getting promoted? Does that mean I'm doing enough? Is it like, is it just enough to stay where I'm like, what do I do with that? So I try to make sure that I give them something so that I'm not like, hey, no, like I won't talk to you. Come back to me in one day. You have, 24 business hours before I respond to you. No, nothing like that. It's more like I just need some time to process or collect my thoughts so that I can give you something meaningful. So generally, my recommendation is that if you're going to ask your manager for feedback, try not to spring it upon them. Some managers might be great at that. I'm personally not, just for like what it's worth. I'm personally not. Some managers might be very capable of diving into stuff in more detail. It's just not how I am. So understand your manager, their communication style. If you don't know, then I would opt for giving them a little bit of opportunity for that. And then the second part that I would add into there is try to be specific when you're asking for feedback. And this is kind of a weird one. Okay, so this is the next section of my newsletter article, but I wanted to walk through a couple of examples of this because I think sometimes, again, going back to what this Reddit user wrote, this my manager's refusing to give me feedback. And it makes me curious. Are they asking for feedback, getting something, and it just feels like it's kind of half-assed, right? Being able to say, hey, you're doing a good job just doesn't feel like it's very actionable. And to someone hearing that, they might say, like, it just feels like my manager's trying to avoid actually giving me feedback. Right? Refuse might be too strong of a word, but they're just kind of like avoiding giving me feedback. And I could see that being a very common case. Outright refusal of feedback feels kind of weird. I don't think I've ever seen a manager go, nope, no feedback for you, not happening. But it's probably more like it's just not very helpful. So if we consider a situation where someone says, could you give me feedback on how I'm doing? This is a very general request for feedback. And I want to acknowledge that asking for some feedback, I would still say like, hey, good job to someone for actually stepping up and asking for feedback, because it's not an easy thing for a lot of people to do. So I want to acknowledge that. I'm not trying to minimize someone trying to step up, ask for feedback and being like, oh, you suck at asking for feedback. No, I just think that we can do better, right? So first of all, good job for asking for feedback. But the challenge with this kind of feedback is because it's so general, the sort of the response that you'll get is often very general. And if you're watching this live stream and you've come from Code Commute, right? So if you come from my other YouTube channel that's called Code Commute, one of the things that I often say is, because that entire channel is a vlog style, I try to make sure that I'm answering people's questions, right? You can leave them in the comments or you can send them in, and I try to make video responses. But generally what I say is that if you ask me a very general question, super high level, very generic, I probably have to give you back a very generic general answer. One, I don't have the context. And two, in order for me to make it meaningful, I kind of have to approach it from a bunch of different angles and make different assumptions. And then the end result of that, you might be like, well, kind of feels like you just used like spread peanut butter to try and cover enough surface area to give an answer. And it's like, that's exactly what's happening. It's too generic. And you might say, well, given that you had a response that was covering all of these different angles, I don't really know what to go do. But I think it's the same thing with feedback. When you ask for something very generic, unfortunately, the side effect of that is that you get very generic answers. Not always. Because sometimes you might ask for feedback and someone's like, oh, I was ready to give you some feedback. And then they give you something specific. But I would say that if you're asking for feedback from your manager, so again, you've established clear, effective communication with them, you are asking for feedback, and then you're like, but I keep getting this like really generic, kind of useless pat on the back. Good job, keep it up. I would say we can change this, or we can try. Nothing I say is obviously like bulletproof and going to be, 100% success, but I think something that you can try changing is asking for specific feedback. So I wrote down a couple of examples in my newsletter. If you're in the chat and you want to share examples that you have of this, because it's a good time to reflect, and you might be like, hey, I actually tried something like this out and it worked really well. If you want to share, please do. I mean, it's literally a live stream, so I'm happy to, to kind of read out people's comments and stuff. Doesn't matter what platform you're on, I'll try my best. But I said, one example for specific feedback is saying like, hey, Nick, I sent out the draft for my design review. Could you give me some feedback on how I presented the analysis and compared the options? Right, so we're not just saying, hey, how am I doing? It's like, here's a thing I just did. So being timely about it's very valuable. If you're like, do you remember that thing I did 4 months ago? Like, you're probably not going to get super solid feedback. So being timely, it's specific because it was about some design review. So I know the context, but even more specific, it's not just, hey, how was my design review? It's like, I'm asking specifically about how I presented my analysis comparing options. Right. So in this context, what's helpful for me as a manager is I could go reflect on that specifically and say, hey, this was a really good thing you did in your analysis. Like, I like that you called out, these gaps that people might not be thinking about. You did a good comparison and contrast between them. It wasn't just like, boom, 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 here's all the pros of these things. You actually called out the cons. Like, that's a really good thing. And by the way, next time, I think that the way that you presented some of the data, you had it in this particular format, but it really meant that people had to go read through these tables, and that part was kind of confusing. But if you could have plotted that data, it would have helped us really understand, because we spent so much time in that design review, like really talking about some of those details. And honestly, a picture probably just would have made that much easier. So it went from being like, your design, or you're doing good, and you did a good design review, to like, here's how I can try to give you very specific feedback on those things. Obviously, these are contrived examples. Hope you get the idea. Next one I wrote was, these are examples of someone coming to me and asking for feedback. I've just finished the update for sending out out to the stakeholders of the project. Could you give me some suggestions on how I can improve my communication? Again, something timely. Right? I just finished the update for being able to send that out to the stakeholders. And then suggestions around how that communication looked. So for me, this is actually something that's pretty relevant, because the projects that I've been working on, if I'm working cross team, or I'm working especially with sort of different levels in terms of whether that's engineers, whether that's their managers, their group engineering managers, my CVP, right? Being able to communicate things effectively is a really big focus of what I'm doing right now personally. So for something like this, it's like, hey, I just had this communication. Like, could you give me some feedback on this and help me tailor how I can do this more effectively for next time, right? Someone could give more pointed feedback on this. Again, it's not a guarantee that you're going to get specific feedback. I don't think I can guarantee anything that gives you that. But I think the idea is that, like, it at least opens the door for it. 8921111 on Instagram says, hey there, sorry I'm new to seeing you live. Are you a Next.js dev? I'm not. I am a .NET developer through and through. So I have used Next.js. The SaaS company that I am doing on the side for Brand Ghost, which is my social media scheduling platform, leverages Next.js. It's not something that I am personally very familiar with. Other team members are mostly doing that. So if you're looking at my content and you're like, why is there no JavaScript stuff here? It's because I don't like using JavaScript personally, but so I've worked with Next.js, but not my top choice. So offer a lot of general programming knowledge and stuff like that, but programming examples you'll see are generally going to be in C#. And I got this user on TikTok. I have to find a way to boot out of here. Free TikTok coins. Ooh, what's a TikTok coin? What does that even mean? I probably don't TikTok enough to know what a TikTok coin is, but okay, one more example. So employee comes to me and says, I'm working on these 2 projects that I understand to be high impact. Could you give me some feedback on your visibility into these, and if you think I should be adjusting my priorities to be more successful? So this is an example of someone who is trying to make progress across maybe competing priorities. First part is that they're asking for my visibility into them, right? Do I understand how they're progressing on them, right? Do I understand the details of that? Do I have enough perspective on that? So that could be one thing in terms of trying to close some gaps. So again, any feedback that I can offer there, I might say, yeah, like, we talk, at least once a week in one-on-ones and sync meetings and stuff where I have enough visibility into those. So yep, I think you're doing great on that, right? Or maybe not. Maybe I could say like, hey, on that one project, actually, I haven't really seen much coming through on that. I keep hearing you say that you're, moving on to the next part, but I don't really understand like where that is. So I could give some feedback like that, and then at least let them know specifically that's my visibility on that, right? And then the next part, if you think I should be adjusting my priorities to be more successful, right? So in my opinion, I tried to frame this one up like, if we're talking about getting feedback and getting alignment in terms of progression, this is an example of saying, hey, look, we might have talked about me working on these types of projects. Do you think that I have the right prioritization here? Right? Maybe I understood that I should be working on both of these, but you actually see one of these as being more important, more urgent, whatever the gauge happens to be. And there's an opportunity for course correcting. I can give feedback and say, hey, you should approach this differently. So these are 3 different examples of trying to ask for something more specific than just, am I doing good? And I see your question on Instagram. Let me finish up this one thought and I'll go back to answering. I think that I wanted to see if I wrote it down. But I think oh yeah, here it is. So I think that I want you to think about what you're trying to ask for feedback about, because when you say something like, can you give me some feedback and let me know if I'm doing good? Like, what is your goal in asking that, right? Like, I think for most people, something that general is kind of like, to me, it feels like, hey, I'm not really sure if I have alignment or understood expectations about what I should be focused on for progression. And the reason I feel that way is because it's so generic when asking that for that kind of feedback that you're kind of like saying, I don't even know where to start. So I'm just trying to open up the whole thing and say, what are your expectations here? But I think you need to think about what your goal is with it. So a couple of thoughts I wrote down is like, what do you want feedback on? Is it a particular project you're working on? Is it a skill that you're trying to improve? Is it the expectation for what you should be focused on for growth areas? Like what are you actually trying to get feedback on? So center it around that. And then I said, what's the goal of that feedback? Right? Trying to get clarity, trying to understand something better. Is it alignment on your focus? Is it just a checkpoint? Is it to like when I say checkpoint, is that to demonstrate like, hey, look, I've been making progress on this. It's visibility, right? There could be many different things, but I think you need to understand like what you're trying to get out of that feedback. And one more thought on this. I'm going to come back to in just a moment. This person says, I have a Next.js web app that's 90% complete and need an expert to finish the app. No, sorry, cannot do that. Nope, not for me, not for my team. I apologize. Not in our wheelhouse and far too many other things to do. I appreciate you asking though, but that's not my wheelhouse. Um, on the last thought that I had for this on the specific feedback, did I just forget it? Might be gone for forever. That's okay. Someday I will remember. Let's move on. Okay, so I think that when you're trying to do this, right? So you're trying to make sure that you're asking for feedback and then asking for specific feedback. Those are the two primary things that I'm trying to encourage in this live stream, by the way, if it wasn't obvious. Um, Man, this LinkedIn chat is not, it's just not doing it. I have to keep refreshing LinkedIn itself to see what people are sending. Oh, it's an emoji. There it is. It doesn't come through on my side clearly sometimes, and then I have to like actually watch the video to see it come through. So that's awkward. Yeah, the two primary things here are like asking for feedback, not waiting. Right? As much as we want to make sure that we have an awesome manager, I love to think that I'm doing an awesome job managing people, try my best, but I will still have employees ask me for feedback, which means that's an opportunity for me to do better in terms of staying on top of that and giving them feedback. So it's just part of it, right? So even though I'm trying, there's still opportunities. And then the specific feedback, right? Because you might say, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to ask for that feedback. And then you're like, oh, why does it suck? Why am I getting such crappy feedback? And I don't mean like, critical feedback. I mean like the feedback is useless. Good job. Keep it up. What does it mean? I think that this is maybe, I don't know if it's a hot take. We'll see. We'll see how people react. I think that if you're really focused on your growth as a software developer, I think that if you've been asking for feedback and you're in a situation where you're not getting that feedback, right? So genuinely, your manager is like refusing to give you feedback, or they're giving you that feedback, but even though you're being specific with the ask around it and it's not really valuable, I think that you need to ask yourself, like, if that's going to be something that's inhibiting you from making progress and growing in your career, maybe that's not a place for you to stay. So, I mean, it might be a hot take. Not sure. I think at this point in my career, at least, sort of like what I would say is at a place like Microsoft, and I'm assuming most big tech companies, I've only worked at Microsoft for big tech. I would say that if I were working under a manager and I tried to get feedback from them and they weren't able to, from where I'm at in my career, the level that I'm at, I would feel like, okay, if I've tried everything I can do here and you cannot give me feedback, then I am not going to have good alignment with you in terms of expectations. This is not going to be a place that I should stay. This would be detrimental to my career. I would say my perspective on this might be different if I go back to, if I went back to where I was working at in a startup. We were moving very fast, right? I wasn't even asking for feedback. I didn't have time to think about asking for feedback. So it's not something that I really cared about. And there was enough stuff that I could be doing and focused on and whatever else that it seemed to be like not top of mind. So your perspective on this might change depending on where you're at in your career, how you feel like you're growing or not. But for me personally, where I'm at in my career, if I couldn't get feedback that was meaningful from my manager, I would feel like maybe it's not a good working relationship that I have with my manager. And like, that's not going to be successful. So something to think about. Tayman says it's not a hot take, but with how freaking bad the market is, we are forced to deal with any BS thrown our way. Maybe. For how long? I don't know. I mean, if you are working somewhere and you get stuck with a bad manager, like, there is literally no one making you do that, right? So you might say, well, I don't have another job. I have to do this. So yeah, start applying while you're working, right? Like, I know I'm not saying it's guaranteeing you to get another job, but you can be continuing to try and look for other opportunities, right? Don't make it a death sentence. If you are in a situation like this and you can still be learning and growing and challenging yourself, that might not be the end of the world, especially if you are more junior. There's still lots of things you can be doing and practicing and all of that. I think that there are different stages in your career where if you're not getting that support, it will basically be holding you back. And I think these are questions you need to be able to ask yourself at different points in your career. So again, if you're getting exposure to different things where you're like, hell yeah, like this is cool, I'm learning about this, this is beneficial, I'm getting good challenges. I don't know, like I've had periods like that in my career where I'm not like, if someone wasn't actively giving me feedback, I'm like, I can literally feel I can feel that I'm having impact and I'm learning things and I'm growing as a software engineer. I can feel that happening. And I don't need someone else to tell me about what to go focus on, at least for that stage in my career. Would it have been valuable? Absolutely. Feedback, I think, is always helpful. But it wouldn't have been like career gating. And it wasn't, because I had periods where I wasn't getting clear feedback like that. But at this point in my career, yeah, absolutely. Because I would be like, okay, like I'm just working on stuff. I guess I'm hoping I'm doing it right. Bills. I have been applying for a while. No challenges for about a year. No changes? Sorry, bills. Yeah, you have bills to pay. I've been applying for a while. No challenges. I don't know if I totally follow, but I think you're trying to say that you have bills to pay and that's why you have to stay, which makes sense. But like, there's ways to make money, right? I'm not saying it's easy, right? Anytime we talk about this kind of stuff, I don't want people to go, oh, you're just saying it's easy. I'm not. I'm just saying that, like, think about it this way. If you're working at a shitty spot and you don't like it there, like, is that your career strategy? Like, I hope not. That's all. That's all I'm saying. So we always want to make sure that we're reflecting on this kind of stuff and then trying to be proactive in terms of the next step forward. That might mean that it's just a matter of having clarifying conversations with your manager to say, hey, look, I'm not getting the feedback I need. I am trying to grow and improve, and I need more clear feedback. I need feedback in a different way. I need more actionable feedback. I need feedback on these specific things. And if you're not getting that, even after having conversations like that, this is where I'm saying you have a choice. You stay there. And if you're having good challenges to work on and you're growing and learning, it might be totally fine. And I say that as someone who's been through periods like that where I'm like, I'm not getting specific feedback on how to grow in my career, but it's happening naturally because of the things that I'm focused on. But things change over time. Not everything is static. And I would absolutely say at this point, working in a big tech company for me, if I don't have clear feedback from my manager on what to focus on, it means that I am not giving my manager the sort of the evidence that they need to be able to put me up for promotion. And it's that simple. I might be coincidentally doing those things, but I don't want to leave anything to coincidence at this point in my career. So I need to make sure that I have that clear communication channel and not just a positive feedback loop, a feedback loop in general. Okay. We got about 6 minutes left in the live stream because I try to do it for about an hour. If there's more questions coming in the chat, happy to answer those. I don't see anything pending right at this moment. I got to go back to Instagram to see. Nothing on Instagram. But at this point, generally, I flip through a bunch of stuff that I have to offer, so I'll do that. And of course, if you have questions, I'll just shut up and go over to your question. But Boom. We'll go back over to Substack. Again, sorry, Substack folks. I realize you can't see the screen that I'm sharing, but I'm starting on Substack. So you already are where I'm going to be showing people. So this is the newsletter that I have. It's Dev Leader Weekly. This is almost always what the live stream content is going to be on. You don't have to subscribe to the newsletter. I totally understand that some people are like, I just don't want more email. I get enough email. Stop sending me email. Totally cool. If you enjoy the live stream and you like this kind of thing, if you just want to see what the topic is, I put it out on Saturdays. So that gives you Saturday, Sunday, and Monday to check it out. See like, hey, this would be a cool live stream to join. I'll check it out. So please check that out if you're interested, but no pressure to subscribe. We'll jump over to courses. So I do have courses available on Dome Train if you're interested. I know the question that came in on Instagram was about, you know, sort of the stack that I use, but no, like I'm a .NET developer as a hobby now, I guess, because I don't program at work. But if you're not interested in C# and .NET, I do have other career-related courses. So career management for software engineers, getting promoted as a software engineer, behavioral interviews, soft skills. So Ryan Murphy and I have put together these ones as a team on Dome Train. So that's what's linked in the chat there if you're interested. Again, if you're on Substack, sorry you can't see. It's just at dometrain.com. My name's Nick Cosentino. You can search for me on there. And there's C# and career-related courses. A bunch of people are probably checking this live stream out from my YouTube channel. My main one is called Dev Leader, so I will link that into the chat as well. Dev Leader is my channel that focuses primarily on C# and .NET programming tutorials, but then I also mix in topics like this one, but they're edited down. Okay, so if you're interested in hearing about career stuff or you're interested about software engineering in general, sometimes I'll do edited down videos of these types of topics. And the other thing that I have been doing is resume reviews. So if I scroll down a little bit, you'll see all these funny pictures of my face beside a resume. My editor's been having fun with the thumbnails. I've had some positive feedback on them, I guess. But yeah, these resume review videos, if you are interested in having your resume reviewed, just check out one of the resume review videos. I say how to submit your resume in the beginning of it. And this is something, it's kind of funny, but like I don't charge for the resume review. And because I have to pay to have the video edited, it literally costs me money to review your resumes, which is kind of a funny thing. But I'm happy to do it. I've had positive feedback on it so far. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, do reach out. I will try my best to get it scheduled up as a couple weeks late on some of them, just from other priorities and stuff. So I apologize, but try my best to get to them. Tayman says C# and AI teamed up to crush my ambition. You were like on the sidelines throwing them energy drinks to keep it going. I was throwing them energy drinks to keep them going to crush your ambition, or I was helping you. I don't know which one. I hope I wasn't crushing your ambition, so I hope that's not the case. The other YouTube channel I have is called Code Commute. I will... Yeah, Justin, break into tech is the best thumbnail. Which one is that? Where is that one? You don't like the decorator pattern one? Look at that. That's definitely not me, by the way. That's my face, but yeah, these have been fun. I don't even know, I don't know where he gets the headshots from. I must make those faces in the video and the editor just like, yeah, bro, you were basically kicking me in the nuts. Why do you keep coming back then, man? I told you, you're going to get tough love if you join my live streams, right? I'm not going to tell you everything's easy. I'm going to tell you the reality. It's going to be hard. And the reason that you keep coming back is I know you're going to be successful at it because you're persistent. Top third one over. Oh, this one. Yeah, you should have seen the other ones that came in. I love the pain, bro. That's why I'm still going. Excellent. And that's why you're going to keep coming back. You're going to be persistent and you'll do it. And I'll be waiting for you right here when you come in here and you say, I believe in you. But yeah, I'm actually kind of nervous / curious where he's getting these faces. Like, where did I make this face? I don't know. Hello, Tasneem. Welcome from LinkedIn. We're just wrapping up here, so I'm sorry if you're joining pretty late. I'm going to go back to this Code Commute page, though. Code Commute is the vlog that I do. Most of the time, it's me driving around in the car. It's a pretty fun channel for me. I definitely, like, people will, when I talk about getting burnt out and stuff, people are like, oh, just slow down on the videos, but these are so much fun to make. So, like, I think I showed these ones before, but some of them I have a 360 cam going. So if we jump into this one, for example, it's really fun because you can, like, look around, right? I don't know if you can tell, but, like, I'm dragging and dropping with my mouse. You can see as I'm driving. So this is me driving to work. You do have to kind of deal with my face floating around there, but I think they're pretty fun. But yeah, talk about questions that people submit. So the idea with the channel is that people write in the comments or they send in messages, and then I make dedicated video responses to the thing they're interested in. And if I don't have any pending questions, I just go to Reddit and I pick something interesting to talk about usually from the subreddit Experienced Devs. So if you're ever interested in sharing some of my content back to Reddit, I would appreciate that. It helps me get some exposure, because otherwise the couple of dollars that come in from all of the YouTube ad revenue, they basically just almost cover my costs of driving to work in the fast lane. So almost breaking even on that, which is great. Otherwise, the last thing I have to show off is Brand Ghost. Sorry, flashbang warning, that's super bright. Brand Ghost is the SaaS that I am building on the side. I use it for posting all of my social media content. This is something that when I started taking content creation seriously, I said I have to systemize the content that I'm building, and just put a link to that in the chat. And this is especially if you're on Substack. If you're on Substack and you are someone who is a creator or trying to be a creator, what my goal is with Brand Ghost is to make sure that, especially for new creators, you have the tools to get you going, to build the momentum so that you can take content creation more seriously. And because of that, a lot of the things we offer in Brand Ghost are free in terms of getting started and being able to cross post and schedule. So unlike Buffer or some other competitor platforms, they limit either the number of platforms you can connect, or you're basically kind of like your hands are tied for making use of it. You can connect as many accounts as you want with us and cross post, schedule. And yeah, beyond that, the paid for, and people will say, well, then how are you going to survive if it's all free? It's because it's not all free. If you're trying to do more advanced things, like how I leverage it, it's recurring content. So I can create educational content and have it repost later. And that way, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I want to go on vacation, my entire social media presence in terms of posting content is automated. So I get to focus purely on new content creation, and that's how I'm able to scale up everything I do on social media. So if you see what I'm posting on LinkedIn and other platforms, because I've had people say, hey, like, how do you post so much? It's literally because I just focus on creating. So that's what Brand Ghost does for me, and that's why I'm investing all of my time and energy outside of content creation into creating Brand Ghost. So like I said, if you're interested in getting started with content creation, check it out. You can send me a message. I'm happy to walk you through it and explain things. Thanks so much, Jonathan. The question is, should people only attend meetups when their portfolio is strong and ready to apply, or is it fine to go when still learning? Oh, man, definitely. Like, I would say go to meetups. If you have the time to commit to it, please go. It's a networking opportunity, right? I would say, if time permits, go network. I think that for some people, like, let's use myself as an example. I'm very introverted. A lot of people don't know that about me, and they don't believe it because they're like, you're blabbing away on this camera. How can you be introverted? I'm introverted. If you put me into a setting that was like, if you put me in a situation that's like, you should be going to meetups to network, I would talk myself out of it. I'm sure of it. And it's because I'm introverted, and it's very draining for me to be around people, especially people that I don't know. So I would say if you have the time and the capacity to be able to go to and attend meetups, try to do that. Because you might find in the beginning, you're like, hey, this is awkward. I don't know what to do. Like, how should I approach this? At least go. Start showing up. Right? It becomes less awkward, less uncomfortable when you start doing it more. So then start going and then try getting comfortable introducing yourself to people. Right? What's the goal of that? Just to be familiar, right? If there's people presenting at meetups or there's topics and stuff, go ask questions, be curious. Right? I would say don't go into it being like, okay, my goal when I go here is I have to go give my resume to every person I see. Because now you've created pressure on yourself and you're like, you're going into it trying to expect something from people. Go there with the goal of just trying to meet with and engage with people. And once you're more and more comfortable with that, you'll find that you can start having some more meaningful conversations. You might network for more specific industries. When you're talking about portfolios and being ready to apply, like there is so much you could be doing before you're even ready for that. And to get an idea, like you might have conversations with people that are giving you ideas on things that could be helpful for portfolios. You might meet with people and there's some volunteer opportunities where, and I've talked with a few people that have done this where they are able to volunteer on weekends for not-for-profits or some other organizations, right? And they do some of that. And now when it comes time for writing their resume, they have this extra experience they can write down. Not only the projects that they worked on, but they can say like, I did this volunteer work, or I literally got to work in a team building this stuff. So my recommendation, like I said, is if you have the capacity for it, please go make the time for it. I think it's great. This is something I've said too. If anyone is watching and they're in college or university or anything like that, boot camps, whatever, if you're in an environment where there's an opportunity kind of baked into it for networking, take advantage of it. I feel like I didn't do that in school. I've talked about this before where I'm like, I don't know why. I probably thought that I was like, for some reason, like better than other people or something dumb. Like literally I'm going to be 36 real soon. So I'm like a 36-year-old computer nerd streaming on a Monday night, talking about software engineering. Like how much more nerdy does it get? Right. And I was probably thinking, oh, like I can't network with my classmates or they're all nerds. Or like, come on, really? Really? So I would say like, I don't like saying take advantage like you're using people, but I mean like take advantage of that opportunity to be networking. It's there for you, right? So hopefully that helps, Jonathan. I do appreciate the tip. Thank you so much. But folks, I think I'm going to wrap it up there. And just a friendly reminder, do these streams every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific. So if you enjoyed this, be happy to see you next week. Come with your questions. You can message me ahead of time. I'll make code commute videos for you. And thanks. I appreciate you being here. Take care.